Anniversary Sunday, and even more especially, as our welcome speech said, on the day that these brothers and sisters are going to be accepted into full membership in the church. Being part of a church is a great privilege, and it brings with it great blessings. So I thought I'll speak today. Both our lessons today was on community life, and I thought I'll speak today on what we can get from fellow Christians. Enter into the church and you give yourself to people, and the people will minister to you. And so I want to read from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, verses 9 to 12. In your Pew Bibles, it's page 589. Page 589. That's the reading that we had, and I want to speak from that passage. Early in his ministry, John Wesley went to see a person he called a serious man. And that person told him something that he never forgot and took very seriously. He told him, "Sir, you wish to serve God and go to heaven? Remember, you cannot serve Him alone. You must therefore find companions or make them." The Bible knows nothing of solitary religion. Find friends. If you can't find them, make them. Nurture friendships. And I want to challenge you that the great gift that God can give you, one of the great gifts that God can give you as you grow and serve Him, is the gift of friends. People who will help you in your walk with God. So let's go through this verse by verse, verses 9 to 12, verse by verse. Verse 9 says, "Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil." They have a good reward. Can we have the message is on why we need friends, or more popular message would be friends in a Facebook age, right? Which is talking a lot about friends. So the first thing it says is that we have a better reward for our toil. In other words, you become more fruitful. You become more effective when you have friends to help you. I want to just take two ways in which our friends can help us to be more effective. The first is that our friends pray for us. Because they are committed to us, they will pray. And Paul says how he prays for the people he writes to. There are some people who don't like to ask help from others. They don't want to feel that they are indebted to others, that they are needy. But anyone who takes the Christian life seriously would realize we need God's help. And God's help is mediated often through prayers. And so, we are not big shots, we are just people who are seeking God's help to live the Christian life, to live as He pleases us. So, people can pray for us. So that's the first thing that friends do. One of the things that friends do in helping us to be more effective. Another thing is that they give us wisdom for key decisions in our lives. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of a fool is right in his own eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." A wise person will listen to advice. Today, there are so many people who make important decisions, and later they realize, my goodness, what have I gone and done? I know this particular thing you will understand if you have any connection with India. I work in a church where most of the people are not very rich, and one of their dreams is to have a motorcycle or an auto, three-wheel auto. And sometimes, they're very close to you and they buy this motorcycle or auto. And they have put, in their minds, they have planned on how they're going to pay. It's on payment scheme. But they haven't factored into it, what if the child gets sick or something like that. And they find that they miss the payments and they end up, having to forego that vehicle. And very often they come for advice after they have made the decision, after they are struggling from the consequences, not before they make the decision. Somebody else, we get so excited about the plans that we have in our life that very often we are blind to the negative things. We are so emotionally attached to those things. And of course, this is also true of marriage. The most important decision we make in life next to accepting Christ is whom we are going to get married to. God has called us to be married. And so often, people have, that's why they say love is blind. I was talking to a leader in my denomination in this country, and I was talking about how a lot of the people I had gone to seminary with have ended up divorced. And I told him, what's gone wrong? And he said, maybe they got married to the wrong person. So I told him, isn't there anyone in the church who can't tell them you're making a wrong decision? That what you are doing doesn't look like a wise decision? And he said, no, we have no structure for that. I think it's very sad that so many people make key decisions in their life, but they have no one to go to for advice. There are many people who in their young life seem to have bright futures, but they don't live up to their potential because along the way they took a wrong turn and they had no one to advise them. So they had to settle for the second best. I served on a committee called the Lausanne Committee. I served some time ago on the committee called the Lausanne Committee for World Evangelization. That committee was always in need of money. So they used to always talk, now how are you going to raise funds for us to do this conference or to do this consultation? And Billy Graham, who at that time was the most famous preacher in the world, this was in the late 80s, they would say, why don't we ask Billy Graham? Because he was the honorary chairman of this committee. But people close to Billy Graham said, Billy Graham would love to give money, but his board won't allow him. Now here is the guy who is probably the most famous preacher in the world. All the money to this organization comes because of his name, but he had chosen to ask for advice when making decisions. So our friends help us when we to be more fruitful. There's better reward for our toil if we have friends. Verse 10, the next slide please. Verse 10 says, for if they fall, one will lift up his fellow, but woe to him who is alone when he falls and has not another to lift him up. In other words, our friends help us when we fall. When we fall, our friends can lift us up. When a person falls, maybe it's falling into sin, falling into depression, or some big, terrible thing has happened to this person. That person can go deeper into sin, or be defeated by discouragement, or can end up alienated from the church. And at a time like this, his mother, and speaks really badly to his mother, in bad language. And he knows it's wrong, and he comes and tells his friends, and the friends say, you've got to stop this. But it just kept going on and on and on. And then, one day they told him, now this is going on too much, you have to stop this. So they tell him, okay, for 3 months, stop leading worship. Now, this was his joy. Well, he submitted, he knew he needed to give up this. So for 3 months he didn't lead worship in church. And the fellow who was leading worship in his place didn't sing in tune. Now you know what it is for somebody who loves music to find a worship leader singing out of tune. He feels suicidal. Doesn't enjoy coming to church. For 3 months he suffers. But goes through the discipline and then comes back to leading worship. One day when he comes home from school, the mother has done something which he considers really dumb. And his anger comes again. And it comes right up to his lips. And just before he speaks, he remembers 3 months of suffering. And he cuts it. Discipline helps us to overcome our weaknesses. Someone should know what our weaknesses are so that they can help us to get out of this. Hebrews 12:11 says, "For the moment all discipline seems painful rather than pleasant, but later it yields the peaceful fruit of righteousness for those who have been trained by it." Of course, not everyone is trained. It says only some are trained. Others end up bitter about the discipline. But those who really want to serve God, to follow Him, will take all the help they can. Of course, discipline is what happens sometimes. Usually, we just don't talk about things. When people come and share with us, 1 Peter 4:8 says, "Above all, keep loving one another earnestly, since love covers a multitude of sins." When people share their weaknesses with us, we don't talk to others about it. So you have to be careful about whom you trust to talk about your weaknesses. Because some people don't know how to handle this, because they are not grace-oriented people. When we are grace-oriented people, when somebody shares a problem, we want to help that person. How can I help this person grow as a Christian? And so you do what is best. And most often, the best thing to do is not to talk to others about it. So, Peter says, "Since love covers a multitude of sin." So that's the second way in which our friends help us. They help us when we fall. The third way is found in verse 11. And this is, they give us emotional support. Verse 11 says, "Again, if two lie together, they are warm. But how can one be warm alone?" This is talking about emotional support. Those days when people travel in the Middle East, it gets cold, and sometimes it gets cold in the night. So they needed a coat. But because they are traveling, it's too heavy for them to carry a coat. So what they do is they get a blanket and they all sleep together. And their body warmth keeps them warm. So what he's doing here is talking about the warmth that our friends give to us as we live amidst the harsh realities of life. How important this is today. Competition is part of the Western world. And with competition, it's always elimination. And that can result in very insecure people. Our cultures are more comparison cultures. We do have competition, but the form it takes is comparison. How did that person has done better than you. You have to do better than so and so. And when competition and comparison gets together, it's a deadly combination. It can produce very insecure people. People are accepted and rejected based on their performance or their background, or whether they are a threat to us or not, and to our position. So today we have disposable relationships. This is one of the saddest things of today's culture. People are, they are giving up their friends, disposing of their friends. There's a new word in our vocabulary, unfriend. When we were growing up, we didn't have this word. But people are being unfriended. Because when they become inconvenient, you just drop them. And we need people who accept us for who we are, who value us as significant, who are committed to us even when it is costly, and who know who we really are. Sadly, the cyber world has created a lot of superficiality. I haven't gone to any dating websites, let me tell you. But I am told that in these dating websites, people put details about themselves which are not true. Someone who's 50 years old says, "I'm 35 years old." And then when they get together, they are in for a bit of a shock. It's a very friendly society, but the friendship is not built on trust, on truth. And so because of that, people have very few real friends. Proverbs 18:24 speaks to our generation with its addiction to social media. It says, a man of many companions may come to ruin, but there is a friend who sticks closer than a brother. A friend who will stick with us when difficulties come. Now, this trust takes time to develop. You can't just become a close friend with somebody. And it's difficult in our mobile society. People change. People change jobs, they change churches, they change small groups when problem comes. And if we have friends who will stay with us in a crisis, through problems, through conflicts, you end up with relationships which give you emotional support. How important it is for our homes to be places like this, where our children can come home and know that they are accepted. There is a warm welcome for them when they come home, because they face such a blow in society, from their school, and when they come home, they know they can be themselves, and there is a free environment to enjoy each other at home. Let's take an example. Here's a child who is coming home. Somebody is coming home for dinner that day, so mother is very, very busy cooking. And she comes home, the son comes home, and opens the door and shouts, "Mommy!" Now, she's cooking. She's very busy. She's all stressed out, wants to prepare a good meal. The first reaction she gets when this disturbing shout is heard is to say, "What?" But Christian love is decisive. Agape love is decisive. It decides to do the right thing. Not just what you feel like doing, but what you should be doing. So instead of saying, "What?" she says, "What is it, son?" And the son says, "Mommy, I was chosen to that. They desperately need friends." You know, sometimes people say, when I was in trouble, no one came from the church to see me. Part of the reason was that they hadn't cultivated friendships. And no one knew they were in trouble because they were not close to anybody. And so, in their time of need, friends can be very helpful. In our New Testament lesson we read, "Confess your sins one to another so that you may be healed." You know that the original thing about of that passage is that for people with physical sickness, that when they confess their sins, they can be healed. But this can work for other areas too. When a person has fallen, if he has someone to whom he can confess and say, "I have messed up," you know, it takes so much of the pressure of your sin away, and the burden of guilt as that friend can minister to you. Early confession helps avoid major scandals. You know, there are so often people, you're so shocked. How did this happen? You know, but this had been going on for a long time. Friends had noticed, but no one was close enough to tell them. And then, when the problem came in a big way, it was a disastrous situation. For example, here's somebody in an office who's spending a little too much time with somebody of the opposite sex. Now it started beautifully. They are partners in their work, and they combine beautifully. There's, as they say, a chemistry. And these two are really clicking, and they're doing a good work. But after some time, they want to spend their time always together. After some time, they don't tell their spouses that the things they talk about with this other person. Now a friend sees this, and is kind enough to tell him, "Hey, be careful. I think you're going a little too far in this friendship." Some people will reject the warning angrily. and say, you mind your own business. Others will learn and take heart and take remedial steps. Sometimes, of course, discipline is necessary when we fall. And discipline, God forgives us. But very often, the forgiveness does not heal us from the weakness that caused us to fall. So, for the healing of the weakness, even though we have received forgiveness, people are disciplined, not as punishment, but as remedy for the weakness. And so, sometimes we think of discipline only when some huge sin has been committed. But I think discipline is helpful even for our weaknesses, because it helps us to live a victorious life. Let me take an example. Here's a young guy, just confirmed, who leads worship. And he's very good at worship. He sings beautifully and he's able to lead the people in a wonderful way. And he has a group of friends who are his accountability partners. They talk about each other, they help each other. Now, the football team. And the mother, the child, wanted to share this truth with his mother. And of course the mother leaves her cooking, runs and hugs the son, calls the sister and says, see, your brother has been chosen to the football team. And they pray together, and that son feels affirmed. My mother has a place for me. We need places like that. We need friends like that who love us, who accept us. And this acceptance of friends is what takes away the bitterness of life. There are many people today who deep down are very angry. They have faced rejection and hurt in life, but they haven't had someone to comfort them. And they end up, with a mission, but very unpleasant. Eccentric radicals. You may have heard the name Hudson Taylor. Hudson Taylor, after he had been in China, was a great missionary, one of the big heroes of history. After he had been in China for 2 years, the consulate, because he decided to dress like a Chinese, to act like a Chinese, to talk the Chinese language. And after 2 years, the British were embarrassed by him. So the British consulate said, please, you can't work in any area that is controlled by Britain. And then the missionaries were embarrassed by him. So they shunned him. The mission in the United Kingdom wrote to him and said, sorry, we are short of money, we won't be able to help you anymore. And his fiancée, whom he was planning to get married to, wrote from England to say, I'm very sorry, I don't love you anymore. All at the same time. He wrote to his mother and he said, my heart is sad, 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 and I don't know what to do. At that time, he met an older Scottish missionary called William Burns. And William Burns took him under his wing and they traveled together for several months. And his biographer says, William Burns saved Hudson Taylor from himself. He could have ended up a bitter radical, but the friendship took away his bitterness from life. Of course, it's true that ultimately comfort comes from God. But God often uses our friends to mediate that comfort to us. Paul says in 2 Corinthians that he had huge problems. But God comforted him. In 2 Corinthians chapter 1, he says, God comforted him. Then in chapter 7, he says how he was comforted. He says, for even when we came into Macedonia, our bodies had no rest, but we were afflicted at every turn, fighting without and fear within. And then he says, but God who comforts the downcast, comforted us by the coming of Titus. Titus brought comfort to Paul. So comfort, our friends, take the bitter edge of pain from our lives. Cultivate these friendships that give us the emotional support. And then finally, verse 12. Our friends help us in the battles of life. And though a man might prevail against, this is verse 12. And though a man might prevail against one who is alone, with two will withstand him. A threefold cord cannot quickly be broken. In a war, in a fight that you're involved in, a battle, you need friends. Sri Lanka, you will know, has had war for many, many years. And one of the things that we knew was that soldiers never go alone. They always go in twos, threes, or in a company. They never go alone. It's the same with us in our battles for holiness. We need friends to help us. Let me take just two examples. The internet and social media. Today, people are spending so much time on the internet, and some of them are getting into very serious problems with it. Take, for example, pornography. Pornography is an addiction, like drugs. And prayer alone may not help a person overcome the addiction to pornography. In the Bible we are told, flee youthful passions and follow after righteousness, faith, love and peace, along with those who call on the Lord out of a pure heart. We need friends. We need friends to help us in these battles. And as we pray, God gives us friends to do that. And the accountability to understanding friends can be very helpful. There's a lot of accountability software now that people use so that their friends know where they have gone. And it is so, I use one of those. And I get a friend of mine in Sri Lanka, every week he gets a report of my internet watching. And our friends can help us. Part of my job is traveling. And I tell people not to put me in hotels, especially when I go to Europe. Because in those hotels, after about 10 o'clock in the night, the television gets very unclean. So I have this habit, when I go to some place, I write a text message to my wife and to my accountability friends. I have about 4 others who I'm accountable to. And I tell them where I am, and if it is in Europe, and if there's television, I tell them I'll pull the plug out at 10 o'clock in the night. I just tell them, just to help me. Otherwise it's so easy when you're tired, when you're preaching, so easy to keep watching something that's going to ruin your joy, ruin your peace, ruin your relationship with your friend, with your spouses. I just tell them that. I remember once I was in India, in Hyderabad, and I was put in a guest house and they had fashion TV there. Now, fashion TV may be helpful to some people, but it's not helpful to me. And I knew this is going to be a trap. So I immediately wrote to my wife a text message saying, there is fashion TV where I am. And she sent back a text message saying, pull the plug out. And that's what I did. Well, the last day, I was free. The last evening I was free, and it was, I'm quite very, very interested in cricket. It was a very important cricket game, the ICC Champions Trophy finals. And it was on in the evening, but I had promised my wife, I'd pull the plug out, so it remained out. I'm just telling you that we need friends to help us in areas that are so difficult for us to maneuver. Proverbs 27:5 and 6 says, better is rebuke than hidden love. Faithful are the wounds of a friend. Profuse are the kisses of an enemy. I have a point in the notes called devotional life. I think they are a bit long, so I'll get on to number 3. Our friends help us when we are attacked and criticized. When when Peter and John were told, don't preach again in the name of God, in the name of Christ, the first thing they did was to go to their friends. And the word used there suggests close friends. Peter and John had close friends, so when they were attacked, the first thing they did was to come to their close friends and they prayed. You know, when we are attacked, we can overreact. We can resign. We can immediately send a letter of resignation. We can walk out of a meeting. We can send an unwise letter. And in the process, we lose our testimony. We get a bad name for ourselves. People end up feeling sorry for us. How often in work, in church, you see somebody fighting away and everybody's laughing at him inside. Oh, poor guy. He's upset and he's fighting for justice, but everyone knows he's fighting for his name. They bring a bad name for themselves and they lose their respect. At times like this, we need friends to help us to be wise and not to make foolish decisions. Proverbs 12:15 says, "The way of a fool is right in his eyes, but a wise man listens to advice." So my dear friends, especially these friends who are joining the church as full members, make sure that you have support. God didn't call us to live alone. He intended for us to have friends. Develop those friendships. As John Wesley was told, make friends, find friends, or make them, nurture them. Give your time to nurture these friendships in this busy world. So they have better reward for their toil, they have help when they fall, they have emotional support, and they have help in the battles of life. Let's pray. I wonder whether there's someone who feels, I need to find a friend. Why don't you make a decision to go in search of that? All of you perhaps have good friends. Why don't you make a decision to nurture that friendship so that you will be able to help each other as you go through life? And God intends the church to be a family of friends. Why don't you commit yourself afresh to this church and say, within this church, I will serve, I will be engaged. Father, we commit ourselves to this important aspect of life that you have given for us. We are all rushed. We are running from place to place. Oh God, help us to discipline ourselves, to stop and nurture friendships, to be committed to people through whom we can be blessed and to whom we can be a blessing. We ask this in Jesus' name.